Hey everyone, welcome back. Dave in History for the Ages here. So fun topic, but also one that gets us thinking a bit. As always, I'd love to hear your comments, like, share. If you want to help support the channel, I've got some merchandise you can get now. You can see below here. But this is the story of the pepper moss. And before we get into the actual story of the pepper moss, real quick, I'm curious, do you think the Industrial Revolution did more to change the natural world that we live in, or more did it impact human society itself? And overall, was it a more positive or negative event on human history, right? I tend to think it probably had more positives than negatives when you look at a whole of where we were before and where we are after. But I always like to present, multiple perspectives when when you teach a history course. So this is an interesting story on the pepper moths. So what's the deal with these pepper moths? So this is specifically in England, and maybe if you've taken a biology class, you've heard about this. If you have, definitely drop that in the comments too. But for hundreds, if not thousands of years, you had these pepper moths you could see on the image here, and they're white with little black dusting of black speckles there, and hence the word pepper moths. And they dominated. They were like 98, 99% of the population of moths. The other 2% were black moths, as you saw in the previous picture, just a black moth, right? Now, the arch nemesis of the moth is the birds. And the reason the pepper moths dominated is because these moths would live on the trees. And the pepper moths had this great camouflage. And therefore, the birds would eat the black moths and they wouldn't eat the pepper moths. Well, why does this have to do with the Industrial Revolution? Well, when the Industrial Revolution takes place, you have all the soot and smoke and coal and all these massive changes that occurred to our environment. There's just no debating that, right? Obviously, I have another video on the mini ice age. And, I obviously believe that natural phenomena impact our climate. Volcanoes, there's no debate about that, right? Glaciation, all these things. And there's the mini ice age video you could watch about that. But there's also no doubt, for being honest and giving all perspectives, that when you have all of this industrial revolution, that's going to impact our environment too. And so both things can be true at the same time. And so what does this have to do in the impact of the pepper moths? Well, very simple. When the trees literally turn black from all the soot, the pepper moths now are the ones that are kind of more easily seen on the black trees. The trees literally turn black. The black moths get the camouflage, and in a very short time period, the population basically shifted, where about 90% of the moth population became the black moths as opposed to the pepper moths, right? So kind of cool if you think about it that way. Unless you're pepper moths, then it's not very good for you. Now, a little bit more, the story doesn't even end there, because as we get into the 20th century, there's a lot of laws that are changed, clean air and all of that. We get into progressive years and we start seeing a lot of more laws to clean up the cities, and we reduce the smut. And guess what? The pepper moth started to rebound as a result of this. So what's the impact of all this? Why is this important? At the end of the day, it's just about a moth, right? I mean, who really cares? But I think there's a bigger impact on it, which it shows the significance of what in the Industrial Revolution did. And also, it touches on what is this concept of laissez-faire even, right? This is something I cover in more detail in my full lectures on the Industrial Revolution and Enlightenment, this concept of laissez-faire, very limited government. And you had this concept of pure laissez-faire, and, again, great thing to leave a comment on in this video is, what do you think? This pure laissez-faire, what are the problems with it? But then what's the other side of the coin, where I think many people very fairly argue today that we've shifted so much away from pure laissez-faire and we have uber government controlling every aspect of life. As I ask my students, tell me one thing you could do today where the government doesn't control. And they sit there with blank looks on their face. So I think it's finding that middle ground that I think is the trick, because when you had this Industrial Revolution and this pure laissez-faire, boom, you see how it impacted the moth population. But more importantly, people are breathing this stuff. It's unhealthy, sanitation, and so forth. So it's a story about pepper moths, but at the same time, it kind of gets us thinking about the role of industry, the role of government, the role of environment, all of these things from one little story about pepper moths. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. Definitely leave a like, comment, share, and thank you for watching. Everyone have a great day.